Hi, everybody. It's Kirsten Fox at our weekly webinar. Today, we are going to be discussing why reds are so good with winter foods. So let's see. I am the CEO of Culinary Wine Institute, and I'm the headmistress of Fox School of Wine. I'm also a sales rep for Southern Wine and Spirits. And as of yesterday, I'm so excited about this, I'm a blogger on the Huffington Post with a new column called Wines to Pair with Life, which is more about fun and games than it is about the industry, but I'm excited about that. I just submitted my first post and expect to have that up and running. I'll send out a link to everybody as soon as that is up because it's really fun. So today's topic is going to be about red wine. So of course, I have to have my red wine as a part of our discussion. And I actually am coming down with a cold. So I also have my little echinacea pills. So I kind of thought it's going to help me get better and better, faster and faster, given the fact that red wine is supposed to be really healthy. So I figured I'd take the echinacea with the red wine and double my my pleasure here. So here we go. Yes. If you're watching this webinar, you're wondering why perhaps reds go better with some of our winter foods. And I will be delivering, number one, why is that the case? And you'll have a list of key red wines, and in their order of, basically we'll explain why, but they're presented in an order, so you can take a screenshot of that. And we'll talk about the foods they pair with as well. So let's see about going to this is so cool, all this technology. So I don't know yet why this is blurry. I apologize for that, but it is. And unfortunately, we're just gonna all have to deal with that. I will work on that next broadcast. So let's see. How does this work? Oh, there we go. Here are our takeaways. Maybe. Oh, look at that. It gave it to us in, didn't know that it was going to do this. This is from last week's. Here we go. So this is what we're going to be doing today. And I'm excited to get into this with you so that we can learn a lot about reds. Let me take a sip here. Okay. What is tannin? Tannin is in a range of foods, and it is the bitterness, or it's a very large molecule, and it's actually, our cat here is trying to get out the door and is ringing the bell. Not sure if you can hear that. But tannin is a large molecule. It is found in things like the banana peel. It's found in walnut skin. Maybe you've bitten into a walnut skin and it's kind of that bitter effect. It's a drying or astringent effect in your mouth. And it really does, it's a textural type of experience versus a taste kind of experience. So it actually is a cleanser, just like astringent, when you put it on your face, it cleanses your face, or if you use it, you can feel it evaporating on your skin. It actually is a cleanser for your mouth. And tannin is found not only in the walnut skin, like I said, in the banana peel, it's found in red wine. So why does that, where does that come from? So tannin comes from the skins and the seeds and the stems of the plants, and it also comes from the oak barrels. So when we are looking at the tannic compounds in the wine, it varies dramatically based on the type of grape and whether the winemaker has chosen to put it into barrels or not for aging. So let's see, I'm going to try to do something here. And I'm going to come back to me, hi, and then we're gonna go to a little clip, a video clip from one of my classes, and it'll explain about why tannin and that grippy compound goes really well with the fat in foods. So here we go. I think I'll be sharing this with you. Oh, look, there I am. Okay, and how do I get that to play? Like our oversteeped tea. So why do I keep talking about tannin? Because in pairing food with wine, tannin is one of the most important variables to consider. Pretend you've got a nice piece of beef in front of you. Maybe a ribeye steak, that's my favorite. Because much of the flavor of meats comes in the marbling of the fat. In looking at this piece of meat, you can tell it is a good one. Now take a big bite of that beef. So you're chewing the bite of the food, and as you chew, some of the richness or the fat is being distributed around your mouth, on the roof, on your taste buds, and even on your cheeks. Just like paint seals up the pores in wood, so does the fat in the food put a layer on top of your taste buds and all around your mouth. So back to the tannin we started with. Tannin is like cleanser for your mouth. The grippy nature of it cuts through fat. This is basically food's equivalent of sandpaper. And you need light sandpaper for light jobs and heavy sandpaper for heavy jobs. The richer and more fatty the food, the more tannin you want in the wine that is complementing it. So let's stop for a sec. Now that you know what tannin is, do you realize that all you really need to remember is the key varietals and where they fall in tannic strength? And you'll immediately be able to start helping your guests find great pairings. All right. So I hope that gave you a little overview as to what the fat does in your mouth and why the red wine going in cleanses off your tongue and your cheeks and that. So I am drinking today a Syrah. It is out of a region in Tuscany called Cortona. The Cortona region in Tuscany is actually not, they don't use Sangiovese for the most part. It's a different DOC, and they produce Syrah there. So this is Il Castagno, and it is not the craziest tan, pretty high. So my mouth, I'm not eating right now, so my mouth is pretty dried out. So but it's nice to sip while we're chatting about wine. So let's see. We've talked about tannin. We've talked about how it gets into the wine. So let's just go over that a second again. So when the grapes are are picked, oftentimes there are stems that are incorporated into the big vat, and they are crushed. So you have skins and seeds and the stems. As the wine grapes are being crushed for the juice, the tannin will flow out as a part of the juice. The thicker the skins of the grapes, the more natural tannin will be included as the juice is squeezed out of the grapes. And then the longer you leave the juice on the skins, the more color they pick up from the red skins, and the more tannin they'll pick up as well. Then the winemaker takes that juice and puts it to ferment sometimes, or after fermentation, into oak barrels, and oak has tannin in it as well. And so tannin will leach from the oak barrels into the red wine as well. And in fact, that is why some oaked white wines will have a little bit of a grippy nature to them. Some Chardonnays, for example, they'll oak and they'll come up into your mouth and you'll kind of go, that's an interesting texture in my mouth. And that is often from the oak barrels leaching a little bit of tannin into the white wine. So let's try this. And let me see if this is the right, let's see, here we go. So in this case, here are the red wines in there, and these are just some of the more broad types of wines that you see. But let's start with the Beaujolais and the Valpolicella. So Beaujolais is a very light wine out of a region in France that used to be part of Burgundy, but it's now its own section or own area, appellation, and Beaujolais is made from a grape called Gamay, Gamay. It is a very light grape, as is Valpolicella out of Italy. So they are very light in their tannic strength. Then you move into Pinot Noir and then into Zinfandel. And again, these are general types of strength. There are certainly some Zinfandels that get really, really tannic, but most Zinfandels are not produced as a tannic type of wine. Then you get into Merlot and Malbec. And Nebbiolo, although it is a very light wine, it is so tannic that it is up there in terms of pairings with the fat contents of foods. So Barolos and Barbarescos can be extremely drying and extremely grippy in your mouth. And then moving into the Cabernet Sauvignon, and then into the Syrah and Shiraz. So that is kind of a good spectrum there to take a picture of, to give you an idea of when because we all sit there and we all go, oh, I know that this food right here in front of me, let's just say it's a very light salad, but it has some flank steak cut up on top of it. Well, whether or not there's flank steak on top, it is still not a very rich or dense or fatty meal. So if you're going to have a red wine, you're going to want to go higher on the scale here, lighter, to pair with that type of a salad. But if you are, let's just say you've got, oh my gosh, a piece of steak and you've got a béarnaise sauce on it. I mean, that is got a piece of beef that already has fat in it, and then you're adding a rich, fatty type of a gravy to it. So it's going to be extremely coating on your taste buds and in your mouth. So with that kind of a meal, you want a big tannic wine like a Cabernet or a Syrah or a Shiraz to cut through that with each drink so that you taste your bite better the next time. So that is our exciting tannic strength discussion. And since we're all, as we look at why we're all here on a webinar like this, I see us all having common goals. We want to understand wine better. We want to help your team with wine knowledge as you run your restaurant, or if you own a restaurant, or maybe if you're just learning and you're trying to become a part of a team. Certainly we want to make money selling wine, and we want to give better customer service. So in light of that, I have produced a book, and you can't see this because I guess it's so darn fuzzy, but I produced a book called the Profitable Wine List. I'm just going to stop sharing this. Just a second here. Stop. There we go. So I'll show you my book. Here it is. It's on Amazon for $19.95. And in fact, I think Doug on this call has gotten a copy of this. So this is $19.95 on Amazon. And if you are interested, I'm happy to send a copy of this. This goes through the 3 steps to creating a profitable wine list. The first one is looking at your wine list and actually getting it set up so it makes sense and pricing it. And then into getting the product quality that you want, and then thirdly into your servers understanding wine well enough to sell it. So this is available Amazon $19.95 today. Because you've been through this webinar and you are so nice to last through the whole thing, I'm loading my offer right now. And if you'd like, you're welcome to click the section on the right of your screen, and if you would like to click that send it to me button, I'm happy to send this to you for half off. So $10, I'll pay your shipping, I'll pay your tax, and I'll sign the book for you. And I'm happy to do that because I'm interested in everybody understanding more about wine so they can have more confidence at their tables. So that said, questions. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go back to, I think I can go back and you guys can still see the offer. I'm going to go back to chat and see if anybody has any questions, any pressing questions at this point. I did get an emailed question to me. So as you guys are thinking of your questions, there's a little bit of a delay in this webinar platform that I'm using. So I don't know if I can see questions all yet, but I did get an emailed question from a guy who registered for the webinar. He's going to use the replay and he wanted to know the answer because he couldn't be here live. He said, is tannin tied to sweet or dry red wines? And Scott, that's a great question because you would wonder, is it going to be higher or lower in either of those? And the sweetness and the dryness in this case have absolutely nothing to do with the tannic structure. So the sweetness or the dryness have to do with whether the winemaker left any sugar in the wine itself, whether they stopped the fermentation perhaps before the yeast had eaten all the sugar in the juice. So in this case, you can have a highly tannic wine because perhaps they've used Syrah grapes and then they didn't ferment it to all the way to dryness. And so you'll have a sweet Syrah in essence and a high tannic profile. This tannin that this Syrah that I've got here is very dry. So they fermented it all the way to dryness. And in fact, if you were on our webinar last week, we talked about legs or tears. And I'm going to roll this around, but I'm not sure if you can see the legs or tears in this forming, but it's not a low alcohol wine, but it's not as high as the one last week. This is, what is this? This is, it's always 14.5. So last week we had a 15.5 alcohol content wine. All right. No other burning questions out there from the audience. So next week, our topic is going to be, what is my go-to wine for a group of people at a restaurant, one table, lots of different entrees? What wine would I suggest for them that will go with almost all of those foods? Thank you so much. Make sure you click the offer and if you're interested in the book. And I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you next week. Ciao.